I'm just waiting on your go, Jared. Ian, are we up? Great. If you're tuning in, everybody, thanks for hanging with us as we are getting our first live stream of the season going. Well, here we go. Hold on to your hats. Coming to you from Jonesborough, Tennessee, the storytelling capital of the world, and broadcasting from the historic McKinney Center, it's the Storytown Radio Show, and I'm your host for tonight, Jules Corriere. Well, I want to tell you about a milestone that we've hit. We are, believe it or not, starting our 10th season right here tonight. We wish we could celebrate this moment with you all here in person. We really miss our live audiences. Now, this past year has been unique, to say the least. When the pandemic began, we didn't cancel, we created. We found a way to keep the show, and the cast and the crew and I, we all believed it was important to continue bringing to life the stories and music that demonstrate East Tennessee's resilience and strength, especially during these difficult times. And these are difficult times. Since April of 2020, the Storytown Radio Show has performed as a free live stream, bringing stories of comfort during a time when, we really needed it. But without ticket sales from our live production, we lost our primary revenue source to support the program. We need your help. Tonight, we're also kicking off a 2-month fundraising campaign, and you can contribute to it by clicking the link right now on the Storytown Radio Show Facebook page. Help us reach our 1-year goal of $5,956. Okay, I'll call it $6,000. I was just trying to let you know exactly down to the penny what we need to keep bringing you these stories. Now, if you've loved the music and the heart that you found in these real local stories, we're asking you right now, be a part of that future. You might be asking, what do I get? Well, first of all, I would be asking that too. Just know that first, you're getting our undying thanks for helping us keep alive the stories and music and cultures and traditions of this region. But the more you give, the more you get, right? For just $5, which is our usual ticket price, you will get a link to an exclusive concert with Freddie Vanderford and Brandon Turner, one of our all-time favorite music guests from Buffalo, South Carolina. And for $10, you get an exclusive link to a free tutorial on the harmonica by Freddie. For $15 or more, you get all of that, plus behind-the-scenes interviews with our special guests this year that are going to include the Snake Lady, but more about that later. Now, you also have the option of being a sponsor for a whole episode for $100 or being a season sponsor for $500. So if you can right now, please find that donation button on the Storytown Radio Show Facebook page or open another window. Go to jonesborough.com/tickets and click where it says donate, and the Storytown Radio Show will come right up. And just donate what you can. We're appreciative of anything that you can give. Thanks for helping us do what we can do. We'd also like to say a special thanks to the Tennessee Arts Commission for providing us with a grant that's helping us get through these difficult times. And now, the show. The show is going to be all about musical traditions in our region. It's hard to even know where to start.
Well, we could start with the new theme song for our show.
We sure could. We want to thank Heather McCluskey for writing this song for the Storytown Radio Show. Jared, how about giving us a little bit of a preview of that song, which we're going to play in its entirety at the end of the program. Here it comes. And we're so grateful to Heather. She's so talented. She's written music for us for our plays. She's written incidental music in the show.
Storytown. Just take a listen and you'll be spellbound. We gather all your stories in a brand new play, then retell it the Jonesborough way.
And now for some stories.
There's an idea out in the world that this part of Appalachia is nothing but bluegrass music. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I tune in on Sundays to the Bluegrass many more musical traditions found in this region. When outsiders think of East Tennessee and Appalachia, there's usually a picture they hold in their heads of long-established stereotype of a pretty homogeneous group. You know what I'm talking about. Often barefoot, slouched hats, carrying long rifles from the 19th century. Now, during President Johnson's war on poverty back in the 60s, photographers and news crews came to parts here and in Kentucky and Southwest Virginia and West Virginia, shining a light on the poverty. They focused so intensely on the clapboard homes and rundown farms, they ignored so many other aspects of the culture in the southern Appalachian region. Yes, culture. Jonesborough, for instance, has historically been a traveling point for many different kinds of people. Its earliest days saw hunting parties of the Cherokee and Chickasaw. As Europeans came, Jonesborough was established to be the seat of government for the growing western region. Far from a town filled with shacks, the first building constructed was the courthouse. Lawyers built the first homes here, and merchants set up fine shops to serve them in the late 1700s. Jonesborough was situated on the old Stagecoach Road and became a stopping-off place between the established eastern cities and the unpopulated western frontier. The Chester Inn accommodated these travelers who came from, yes, Scotland and Ireland, but also Italy, and we even had Dutch newcomers. The expansion of territory also came another influence, that of African people.
Sandra, start the story again, move to the center mic. Tell them we realized the mic wasn't working, we're starting again.
Okay, so we realized the mic wasn't working, and I'm starting this again, so now you can really hear me. There's an idea out in the world that this part of Appalachia is nothing but bluegrass music. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I tune in on Sundays to the Bluegrass Show and listen myself. But there are so many more musical traditions found in this region. When outsiders think of East Tennessee and Appalachia, there's usually a picture they hold in their minds of a long-established stereotype of a pretty homogeneous group. And you know what I'm talking about. Often barefoot, slouched hats, carrying long rifles from the 19th century. During President Johnson's war on poverty back in the 60s, photographers and news crews came to parts here and in Kentucky and Southwest Virginia and West Virginia, shining a light on that poverty. They focused so intensely on the clapboard homes and rundown farms, they ignored so many other aspects of the culture in southern Appalachia. Yes, I said culture. Jonesborough, for instance, has historically been a traveling point for many different kinds of people. Its earliest days saw hunting parties of the Cherokee and Chickasaw. As Europeans came, Jonesborough was established to be the seat of government for the growing western region. Far from a town filled with shacks, the first building constructed was the courthouse. Lawyers built the first homes here, and merchants set up fine shops to serve them in the late 1700s. Jonesborough was situated on the old Stagecoach Road and became a stopping-off place between the established eastern cities and the unpopulated western frontier. The Chester Inn accommodated these travelers who came from Scotland and Ireland, but also Italy, and we even had Dutch newcomers. With the expansion of territory also came another influence, that of African people who were captured and sold into slavery. And then the majority of the Cherokee were forced out of the region in the 1830s during Jackson's Trail of Tears. Much of their cultural influence was lost, but not all. Jonesborough became a train town, bringing even more different influences. So right here in our place, it has always been much more, well, I can't say metropolitan, but definitely more diverse than the typical stereotype. And music was always part of the culture.
You can go to the Tipton Haynes Historic Site in Johnson City and see a beautiful early model piano. In 1832, David Haynes shipped this piano from Baltimore for his daughter Emmeline Haynes. The piano was manufactured by Charles Albrecht and Company of Philadelphia. An ox wagon was used to transport the piano, as there was no railroad in East Tennessee yet. If any of you has ever tried to move a piano just to another room or across the floor, you can imagine what it must have been like to load a heavy grand piano up onto an ox cart for a trip on a dirt stagecoach road for a distance of nearly 500 miles across the mountains and gaps.
We're nearing the 100-year anniversary of the famous Bristol Sessions that took place in 1927, just up the road from here, cementing Bristol's title as the birthplace of country music. When the Victor Talking Machine Company came to Bristol, Tennessee, our hidden talents were finally given a voice that carried beyond the hills and the hollers. Recording greats were discovered and played all over the airwaves across the nation, giving rise to the popularity of Jimmy Rogers, the Johnson Brothers, and the Geneva Ramblers, and of course, the Carter family. In those sessions, country music was born.
And not to discount it, we do have a long history with bluegrass music.
Even bluegrass owes its origins to other cultures, though. Just think about the banjo.
If I'm thinking about bluegrass, I'm thinking about the banjo.
Exactly. But where did the banjo come from? The first handmade gourd instruments with strings were called banjos and originated in West Africa. The instruments made their way to North America by enslaved Africans who carried their traditional music and heritage with them to the Caribbean and the United States. Their stringed instruments were appropriated by other cultures and moved throughout the United States and into Europe as part of the minstrel shows that gained popularity in the late 19th and early 20th century. So when you listen to bluegrass, you are also hearing echoes of an ancient African tradition.
Of dulcimer music in the region by starting the annual dulcimer event. Events and showcases of dulcimer music and dulcimer players were spread throughout the town from Main Street corners to the McKinney Center to the Boone Street Market Plaza, as well as front porches. Last year, Jonesborough Dulcimer Days was presented with an online event and the music played on. You can listen to dulcimer, folk, old-time music, and bluegrass music every month at the Spring Street Music Room, which right now is doing free live concerts online, at least until we're safe enough to gather in person again. In better times, the room is open to the community as a listening space for local musicians and a gallery for local artists. Like the Storytown radio show, we've decided that the show must go on. We have remained a space for local musicians to perform live stream concerts and even earn some much-needed revenue through the online tip jar. You'll get to hear ukulele performers, guitarists and singers, Celtic music, dulcimer music, and more. Basically, it's going to be Jonesborough's studio for local artists. Now, for those of you who don't know exactly what a dulcimer is, I'm going to let Roxanne explain all about it before she plays us a number. You might recognize Roxanne as a regular performer at the Spring Street Music Room.
Appalachian dulcimer, also known as the mountain dulcimer or the lap dulcimer. It's a small-bodied instrument of the zither family, meaning its strings reach across its entire body. Something a little different about the instrument is that it's diatonic, and what that means is that it's set up to play only the notes of the major scale. So if you go up the fretboard, you go. So really, you have no wrong notes when you play this instrument. And that's one of the things I love about it, is that it's a very accessible instrument, very good for people who are beginning or might not have a lot of musical ability. And I think that that accessibility and making music more within the reach of a greater community is a really wonderful asset of this instrument. So I'm going to play a little bit for you, and Mike is going to join me on some guitar, and we're going to play a song that I wrote a few years ago. It's sort of autobiographical. It's called A Highway Headed East. I was born into a town that wouldn't have me. I wore a black mark upon my name. I had more than my fair share of grief and worry. And everywhere I turned, more of the same. From the time that I could walk, I was in trouble. A loner and a stranger on my own. I left home the very moment I was able. Loaded up my things and I was gone. And on a highway headed east, I found my soul. On a highway headed east, I'm bound to roll. And don't pay me no, never mind now, unless you wanna know what I found out on a highway headed east. Didn't know if I would find what I was chasing. Wasn't even sure if it was real. But I was tired of all the time that I was wasting, sitting around a small town spinning wheels. It's been a few years since I set out on the highway. People and the places came and went, but the days I lived to wander, finding my way, are the best years of my life I've ever spent. And on a highway headed east, I found my soul. On a highway headed east, I'm bound to roll. Don't pay me no, never mind now, unless you wanna know what I found out on a highway headed east. What I found out on a highway headed east. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Roxanne. How about that? She wrote it herself. That's part of the talent that's right here in Jonesborough, and that's what we're talking about with the musical traditions that are right here. Now, Mike, if you come back to the mic, and we've got all of our mics working now, so thank you, Jared, for fixing that. If anybody wants to know more about the Spring Street Music Room or wants to get in touch with you, whether they're a performer or want to watch one of these concerts, what does somebody need to do?
Basically, you can find us on Facebook at the Spring Street Music Room and contact us through there. We are basically making ourselves available whenever it's convenient for musicians and artists.
Thanks so much, Mike. Now be sure to check out the Spring Street Music Room to truly hear music of our place. If you are just tuning in, you're listening to the Storytown radio show on WETS 89.5 FM out of Johnson City. Brett, why don't you play us a little music for their ads? Thank you, and we are back. And I also have another thank you. Thank you. We have got some donors that have popped up and given to the show already during our fund drive. I want to thank Nancy Buffard, Foy Webb, Paula Evans, Robert Molesky, Heidi Ely, David Castell, who has sponsored an episode, Terry and Sandy Countermine, who have sponsored an episode, and Sandy and Gary Degner, who have become season sponsors. Thank you so much. And if you see that donate button or go to jonesborough.com/tickets, up where it says donate, Storytown Radio Show will pop up. And if you give what you can, we would appreciate it so much. Now, I've got a treat for everyone. Starting our 10th anniversary, we wanted to make sure we kicked off the season with one of our very favorite all-time artists. That's right, Freddie, Vanderford, and Brandon Turner. We love their Piedmont Blues style of music. And, of course, with COVID, there's no traveling right now. But you know what? They have decided that they were going to join us from their front porch. So get ready for some toe-tapping music. Jared, how about showing us a little bit of Piedmont Blues style from Freddie and Brandon. Hi, guys, down in Buffalo, South Carolina.
When I work, what have I got to show? The only thing I got, baby, is just a hard way to go. I'm gonna throw up both of my hands. I'm gonna holler, what's for you? I know auto, but I ain't on. Ooh, gonna cut you loose. Well, now you're looking real good, baby. You're looking good and fine. Honey, you know that car you got. You know it used to be mine. I'm gonna throw up both of my hands. I'm gonna holler, what's for you? I know auto, but I ain't on. Ooh, gonna cut you loose. Baby, you say you love me as long as you be alive. Honey, you know that talk, it try not to be shy. I'm gonna throw up both of my hands. I'm gonna holler, what's you? I know autumn, but I ain't a. Ooh, gonna cut you loose. I'll play the blues, man. When I work, what have I got to show? The only thing I got, baby, is just a hard way to go. I'm gonna throw up both of my hands. I'm gonna holler, what are you? Women, Lord, they make me tired. Half full of give me a mouthful, much obliged, but mama don't allow me to go around all night, go around all night, go around all night long. I may look like I'm crazy, but at least I know right from wrong. Come on. Drive down, Mom, bless you. Daddy ride. I know you fooling around that creeping side. You see me coming, put you man I know. Ain't no stranger never been here before, Lord my mama don't allow me to go around all night, go around all night, go around all night long. I may look like I'm crazy, but at least I know right from wrong. I may look like I'm crazy, but at least I know right from wrong.
Thank you so much, guys. As usual, that was some toe-tapping, amazing fun. And if you want to hear more of these two, remember, if you give a $5 donation, you get an exclusive concert with both of these guys. And for $10, you want to learn to play the harmonica like Freddie? He's got a tutorial ready for you.
All right, well, up next, we've got another story about music from an interesting point of view. Finn the dog is back with another adventure in this story we like to call Finn Sings a Song, starring Finn the dog. Here, boy! Here, boy! Oh, good boy. Okay, Now, speak.
My boy loves to sing. Loves it. Every day he sings. He sits at the piano or pulls up music on his computer and finds a song and begins to sing.
Oh, it's time for every boy to be a soldier.
Sometimes he just stands at the piano, pushing keys and singing nonsense.
Ah,
I like to sing too, especially with my boy.
Van! Van! Stop. I'm trying to sing.
My boy doesn't seem to get it. I need to practice too. And I like to practice best with him. My favorite, though, is when he pulls up the music and words on the computer. Then he sings loud like me.
Oh, you ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Crying all... Van! Stop it! I'm trying to sing. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Crying all the time. Crying all... Van! Van! Stop it!
Finn is quiet.
Now! No more. I am trying to sing. You ain't nothing but a hound dog.
No Finn
Crying
is
all the
singing.
time. Crying all the time. Crying. All right, boy. You're going to have to go outside. I've got practice. This ain't working.
Somehow I always end up outside during our singing sessions. Oh, squirrel!
Good boy, Finn. It's not your fault your boy doesn't recognize great singing when he hears it, right? And thank you to Elizabeth Hunter for writing another great adventure with Finn the dog. I'm sure he's going to be back sometime later this year.
We've been telling you stories about the music found in our region. And earlier we mentioned that music has been a part of Jonesborough's life from its earliest days. Well, we've got someone here who knows all about Jonesborough's earliest days, and that's Angie Fellers-Mason, one of Heritage Alliance. She's back with us this month for another installment of Ask the Historian.
Thanks, Phyllis. I'm here to tell you about the time Jonesborough, Tennessee made it into Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Oh, was it for being the oldest town in Tennessee?
Nope.
Was it for baking the world's largest pizza on Main Street?
No.
Good. I'm currently working on that one.
Was it for the number of bees worn as a beard on a person's face?
Well, no, it wasn't for any of those things. The honor belongs to J.T. Whitlock and his fabulous cornet. At the time the article was published, he had played the same cornet at every high school commencement in Jonesborough for 52 years.
Whoa, that's pretty cool.
Quick question. What's a cornet?
A cornet is a brass instrument similar to the trumpet, but it has a more compact shape and a mellower tone quality. Now, cornet bands or brass bands were extremely popular in the late 1800s and early 1900s. These bands had brass instruments and a drum or two, and that's it. Those instruments could carry sound a long way and did not require amplification. These bands, composed predominantly of men, were made up of teachers, bankers, farmers, merchants, doctors, and politicians. Cornet bands played at all major and minor local events.
Oh, so J.T. Whitlock was like a rock star.
Oh, yeah. He was definitely a rock star. Now, Justice T. Whitlock was born in 1877. He attended school in Jonesborough and went to Washington College in Carson Newman before opening a business in Jonesborough. By day, he sold hats and clothes. He kept the latest fashions in stock and had a milliner on staff that made hats for his best clients and his daughter Dorothy's dolls. Every year, he would hold a large fashion show at his store on East Main Street. and he and his wife Cora moved their piano from their home to the store to provide music for these events. J.T. Whitlock was also the mayor of Jonesborough for 5 terms from 1923 to 1932. But his real passion, well, that was the cornet. Now, Jonesborough had already had a cornet band. C.E. Dilworth had established one in 1868. They got new instruments in 1871, which was big news, but not much is known about the band past 1873. The Mathis Cornet Band was in town in the late 1800s, and J.T. Whitlock was the assistant of that band before becoming the frontman. His band was very active in town in the early 20th century. They played at every event. They played when the town commemorated the state of Franklin in 1901.
This is a big event, fellas. Lots of eyes will be watching us, and lots of ears will be listening to us. There's a parade. All those fancy orators in their sleek jackets and dress shirts.
And don't forget the picnic dinner. Don't want to ruin anyone's picnic dinner with bad music.
Right.
What should we play?
Something that conveys the complexity of the state of Franklin and the spirit of those who fought for it.
Didn't it fall apart?
I said it was complex. We need something austere.
Austere? What does that sound like?
I've got it. I know the perfect song.
You all ready to play?
Yes, sir. We have the perfect song to convey the weight and
austere
and austereness of the moment.
Just play Yankee Doodle. People love that song.
Or we will play Yankee Doodle.
J.T. Whitlock and his band also played on November 11th, 1918, when the people of Jonesborough took to the streets to celebrate the end of the Great War, more commonly known as World War I.
Cora, where's my cornet?
On the kitchen table, again. Tomorrow, I'm going to serve your breakfast around it.
Come on, we've got to go.
What's the rush?
The war's over. Germany surrendered. People are taking to the streets to celebrate, and they need music.
What are they going to play?
We'll start with the Star-Spangled Banner, then whip out something festive.
Like Yankee Doodle. People like that song.
Cora, my dear, I will play Yankee Doodle until every soldier comes home if I need to.
I don't know the first high school commencement that J.T. Whitlock played at, but I know one that must have been very special to him. In 1925, his daughter Dorothy was the valedictorian at Jonesborough High School. She was also a part of the last graduating class to graduate from the old building before the new one was opened. Today, we know the new building as Academy Hill Condominiums.
I'm so very proud of you.
I know. You've only told me 1,000,000 times.
And I'll tell you 1,000,000 more.
I am a little nervous.
That's all right.
And I'm a little sad. We are the last class to graduate from these halls. They'll tear the building down. Another part of my childhood gone.
You always were an old soul.
But I'm also excited about the new school and all the opportunities for my fellow classmates and those to come.
Change is always exciting and a little sad. Did I tell you how nervous I was at my first big concert?
Was that the State of Franklin event?
Indeed, it was.
When they made you play Yankee Doodle over and over and over?
10 times. Not that I counted.
Did you ever get tired of playing these commencements?
No. I love sharing my music. And it's nice having this kind of job security. Much more secure than being mayor.
Oh, I think it's time for me to go on stage.
Now take a breath. You'll be fine. And if you get too nervous and forget your words, just motion for me, and I'll start playing Yankee Doodle.
Thanks, Dad.
I'm not sure when J.T. Whitlock's last commencement was, either. He passed away in 1962. His daughter, Dorothy Whitlock Wood, went on to be a founding member of the local chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. She was also instrumental in Jonesborough's preservation movement. So share your music. Share it far and wide. You never know what instrument will become a part of your identity, a part of your story.
You are so right, Anne. And I would like to say hello to Carolyn Hill, who's online right now watching a story about her grandfather, J.T. Whitlock. Hi, Carolyn. Thanks for tuning in with us tonight. Now, there is a sort of magic in music, whether you play it or listen to it. I remember discovering that magic when my daughter was first born and then my son. In their cranky moments when nothing else could soothe them, not a diaper change, not a feeding, not even a binky. They would always settle down almost immediately when I sang to them or put on some of their favorite music.
Oh, that is so sweet. Oh, what did you sing to Cassidy, your first baby? Was it a lullaby that you learned from your mother?
Well, not exactly.
Or did you hum one of those Mozart pieces you like to play at home?
Well, no, it wasn't classical music either. Cassidy, well, she's always danced to a different drummer, Richie Ramone, to be specific. I noticed when I played music by a certain group, she would always settle down. So one night after I tried an assortment of lullabies and nursery rhymes to soothe her, I started singing songs by the Ramones. That did it. A little bit of Sheena is a Punk Rocker, or a lick of 24 hours to go, I want to be sedated. And she was.
Interesting. Did this carry on to Ian too?
No, Ian was more inclined towards Tony Bennett and maybe Dizzy Gillespie. Let me tell you, salt peanuts, that is a hard song to hum, especially when the only words in the song are salt peanuts by Dizzy Gillespie. I can't imitate a horn as well as you all could in that last scene, but I'm glad that Ian came to like Dave Matthews and Coldplay a little bit because it's a little easier to croon.
Those are some unusual tastes.
They had a lot to choose from. I played all kinds of music when they were growing up because I was still growing up with them. I love exploring new music even today, and I still love discovering old songs from the past. And I also like to listen for how that music of a certain era helps to define that moment in time.
That is so true. You can hear the energy of what is happening historically in the music being created in those moments. In Aaron Copland, you can hear the hope of America on the move. In Duke Ellington, you can hear the promise of opportunity butting up against the door of historic oppression. And with Mozart, you can hear the emergence of an age of discovery and beauty and reason and even revolution. The artist Jean-Michel Basquiat said that art is how we decorate space, music is how we decorate time. And I might even add that music is how we define our time. You can really hear this traveling back in our history with the ballads, especially women's ballads, that took root right here in East Tennessee. This music came over from Scotland and Ireland, but was shaped by the experiences gained in this rugged region. They are intended to be sung by women, about women, and their challenges and fortitude. They really found a strength of voice in Appalachia. Dr. Katie Hoffman speaks of the long history of women's ballads. Many of these old tunes, like Mary Hamilton, took on a meaning of their own for our frontier women. Lacking political or even familial power, these women found strength in the places where they had a choice, and often the only choice they had was to give up or keep going. But at least the choice was theirs to make. In that, they found power and sang to their power. The ballads have been sung here for over 200 years, and they continue to carry that theme. It makes you wonder if those ballads gave rise to the suffragette movement in our state that finally ratified the 19th Amendment.
Ballads are an important part of this region's history. In the late 19-teens, British folklorist Cecil Sharp documented multiple tunes for 274 distinct ballads from singers all across the central Appalachian region. This was the beginning of a wave of folklorists and collectors called song catchers coming to Appalachia and the Ozarks and many other rural areas to collect the songs that the singers called the old love songs and the collectors just referred to as ballads. Interestingly enough, a lot of these collectors, like Artis Moser, Elizabeth and Edwin and Mary Kirkland and Mary Elizabeth Barnacle, they were academics. So these collections are comprised of songs from the university students who had learned them from their family and their community members and sang them for their professors in school. So I myself come from a family of mostly gospel singers, actually, but even occasionally I can remember my grandmother singing Barbary Allen while she made coffee first thing in the morning. It wasn't until I started college at Mars Hill University in western North Carolina that I met Sheila K. Adams and other ballad singers of Madison County and started intentionally singing these songs and expanding my repertoire. This year, Sheila and I were able to get a mentor apprenticeship grant through South Arts and the In These Mountains initiative, where we are focusing on preserving the ballads from the western North Carolina and East Tennessee region that Sharp referred to as the Great Divide. As part of that grant, we have partnered with other regional ballad singers, Bobby McMillan, Sarah Lynch Thomason, Jordan Hewitt, William Ritter, Leela Weinstein, and a couple of other singers, to attend a monthly virtual ballad swap hosted by Susan Pepper of western North Carolina. And I hope to be releasing an album of 20 ballads from this area later this year.
That is so fascinating, Ian. This is Ian Kirkpatrick, who is now a regular Storytown AmeriCorps person with us. And Ian has researched so much about ballads of this region, and he's also a ballad singer himself. So how about it, Ian? Will you sing one for us?
Of course I will. I'll do you one off my album. This comes from Ida Kaiser in Jayhawk, Virginia. Her daughter, Buny, was enrolled at LMU, Lincoln Memorial University, in Claiborne County, Tennessee, where I am from and where she sang this song in the 1930s. It's about a woman that loved her man so much, well, she killed him. Come in, loving Henry, she said, and stay all night with me. Your bed shall be made of finest silk and gold and silvery. No, I can't come in, little Margaret, he said, and stay all night with you. For the girl I left in a foreign land will think I am untrue. She seated herself in a parlor for to take a kiss or two, and with the knife she held in her right hand, she stabbed him neat and through. How long, little Margaret, he said, till you and I must part. The purest blood that ever flows comes flowing from my heart. She called on a girl in this little town to keep her secret still, and the ring I place on his right hand shall always belong to him. She took him by his golden locks, her sister by his feet. They carried him to the riverside and threw him in the deep. Lie there, loving Henry, she said, till the meat falls from your bones, and the girl you left in a foreign land will think you're long coming home. As little Margaret started on her highway home, some Polly parrot seemed to say, go home, little Margaret, it said, and stay till a sweet summer's day. Fly down, Polly parrot, she said, and rest on my right knee. I have a cage of the very finest. I'll give it up to thee. No, I can't fly down, little Margaret, it said, and rest on your right knee, for you've just killed your own true love. I'm afraid that you might kill me. Have pity on me, Polly parrot, she said. Don't remind me of my crime, for the girl he's left in a foreign land stole love that once was mine. Go make my shroud, dear sister, she said, and bury me by his side, for here on earth he loved her best, and in death I'll be his bride. They found her dead next morning, her face turned up to the sky, and on her breast a letter pinned, saying, all dear friends, goodbye.
Such storytelling in those ballads.
It's incredible how music is that thing we remember first when placing ourselves in our memories. For me, it was growing up in the church. We didn't have a record player. We had a piano, sheet music, and hymn books. I think it's important to say that another big musical influence of this region is hymns. Jonesborough Main Street has several historic churches in close proximity. The Presbyterian, founded in 1790 by the Reverend Samuel Doak, who also established Tusculum College and Washington College Academy. There's also the Methodist Church, formed in 1822, just 200 short years ago. The Baptist Church, the AME, Zion Church, the UCC are all within a couple of blocks. The sounds of hymns have been heard up and down Main Street here in Jonesborough for centuries, and they have been an integral part of its musical legacy.
Music defined my time, and that is for sure. I cannot think about the 1940s without hearing a soundtrack, and it was the soundtrack of a country united to fight a great war against fascism. You can hear the marching of the soldiers in the rhythm of the music of Chick Webb and Tommy Dorsey. You can hear the riveting in factories in the boogie-woogie beats of Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller. I was a young, almost teenager during the war, and took it upon myself to head up a scrap drive with other neighborhood children. I pulled my wagon up and down Depot Street, Woodrow Avenue, and 2nd Street, knocking on doors for their used tinfoil. And I'd go to my friends and collect their wrapping paper from their gum, roll it up into a ball. One time, I'd collected so many gum wrappers, I had a wad of foil the size of a basketball. I remember a sort of rhythm in my steps because out of the windows of the houses, I heard the radio playing. Oh, Frank Sinatra, he was big. But you know who else was? Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. I think I might have heard them in more homes than Sinatra and Crosby. My parents certainly preferred that old-time sound to the crooners, but I was young and I was drawn to that new rhythm. My efforts with the scrap drive got me noticed by some older girls, teenagers, and they invited me to come help them prepare baked goodies to bring to the soldiers' home in Johnson City over the weekend. Well, let me tell you, this was big, big stuff for a nearly teenage girl to be there with teenagers and women making cookies and breads for the soldiers. This only happened once a year around Christmas time because of shortages, you know. Everything was rationed, sugar and gas and oh so many other things. Well, we got together at the Cunninghams' home and baked goodies and wrapped them in wax paper and put them in baskets ready to go. And then the most marvelous thing happened. I was asked to go with them to the soldiers' home. Well, back then Johnson City was a long way from here. If you got to ride with other teenagers all the way there, you were really living it up. We got to the soldiers' home, and all the women collected the baskets of our baked goods. We broke into groups and went room to room to give to the soldiers who couldn't make it to the common room. I remember the second room I walked into, and suddenly the romantic, excited feeling I had just seemed to freeze in space. I stood for just a moment and then approached the soldier to let him know I was in the room. His face was bandaged and he couldn't see. I was afraid he couldn't hear because his ear, the side of his face, although it was healing, I could tell that it was burned and there was a hole where the rest of his ear should be and his skin was marble pink and black. I said, "Hello, are you awake?" And he turned his head just slightly toward my voice and answered, "Yes," in something near a whisper. I told him, "I brought some goodies for you." My own voice cracked just a little bit. He must have heard my youth, and he asked me how old I was. I told him 12, because I just had a birthday. I asked him how old he was, and he said, "I'm just 6 years older than you. Can you add that up?" I said, "Well, yes, I'm not a baby." But I was, and so was he. I gave him a soft piece of cake on his tray. He asked me if I had time to stop back before I left. He had a sister my age, and maybe I could help him write her a letter. Mrs. Cunningham met me at the door and looked in and put her arm around my shoulder and led me back to the community room. The space was decorated with paper chains, and it had a Christmas tree. "Sing when the strings of my heart" was playing on a Victor. The mood was brighter in this room. It was also filled with wounded soldiers, but they were well enough to leave their rooms. We laid out the goodies on the tables, and they really enjoyed the feast. Someone put on another record, and it was, "I'll be home for Christmas." Among the missing limbs and eyes and all the wounds, both seen and unseen, there was also such joy because here they were, and they were home for Christmas, eating cookies and playing cards and dancing with us. I would never know the experiences they had that brought them to this hospital, but I did know that I would never forget a single thing about my own experience in this moment. There was the smell of antiseptic and aftershave, sweet cinnamon and white cake, and bandages that needed changing. Old faces, only 6 years older than mine, and the sound of laughter, the kind that might never come again from people who never thought they might get the chance to laugh again. I played Go Fish and Gin Rummy, and I danced the soles right out of my shoes. I slipped away back to that second room, and I helped write a letter home to a kid sister and a mom and a dad, while echoes of Dooley Wilson singing, "As time goes by," drifted from the common room through the hallway to where I was. On the ride home, The mom-aged women were quiet, while the teenage girls talked in high voices about which soldiers they danced with and if they exchanged addresses to write letters. I fell into a deep, dreamless sleep and don't even remember getting out of the car and up to my own bedroom. When I woke up to the gray winter morning, light slipping through the blinds, I realized that the girl who stood frozen in space at the soldier's home the night before, she didn't come home with me. I left her there, in the room, with a boy who was 6 years older, who could not see her there. I think that she's with him still, listening to the echoes play as time goes by.
From the piano brought by ox cart to the banjo brought across centuries, from the ballad singer's voice falling down through the valley to the sound of hymns drifting across Main Street, our musical traditions stay with us. They become a part of who we are as time goes by. That's all the time we have in our show tonight, and remember to tune in the last Wednesday of each month at 8 p.m. on 89.5 FM, and find us on the Storytown podcast at Storytown, all one word, wherever you listen to podcasts. We have a few other people that we want to thank. Some new donors and sponsors. Thank you, Brenda Jeffellers, Heather McCluskey, and Sabra Hayden. We can't do this without you. Thank you to everybody who's donated and everybody who has listened tonight. We want to thank all of you at home. So continue watching us, listen to our podcast, contribute to our fund drive if you can. And if you've got a story, we want to listen to it. So connect with us at the McKinney Center or on the Storytown Facebook page right here, and we'll connect with you so that we can hear one of your stories. Because after all, it all starts with story. Thank you all so much. Here's to our 10th season. Good night.
Welcome to Storytown. Just take a listen and you'll be spellbound. We gather all your stories in a brand new play, then retell it the Jonesborough way. Right here in Storytown, you can relax and lay your burdens down. We'll make you feel at home when you are passing through. Decide to stay and you're welcome to. Keep your eyes wide open, try to drink it in. Keep your mind wide open, be a child again. Welcome to Storytown. Just take a listen and you'll be spellbound. We gather all your stories in a brand new play, then retell it the Jonesborough way. Then retell it the Jonesborough